And on the final week of what's been an up-and-down election campaign for him, I'm joined by the Brexit Party leader, Nigel Farage. Thank you very much for being with us today. Now, before we get on to your own campaign, I just want to start with the interview that we did with Boris Johnson, where he says he wants to see an Australia-style, point-based immigration system.
I've heard that before.
Must have been listening to you. You must be delighted.
I've been saying this for years, that we should not be discriminating against people coming from other parts of the world in favour of the European Union, and you do it on a skills base. You also differentiate between settlement and work permits. And yes, you're right, they're beginning to say the same things. The problem is they'll make no real commitment to cut the numbers coming in. And this is the fourth Conservative manifesto in a row promising to reduce numbers.
I mean, he guaranteed that numbers would come down when I sat down with him.
I don't
believe him?
Come on, this is the same Boris Johnson who twice has publicly called for mass amnesties for illegal immigrants.
I mean, we can have a little look to something else that he told me about immigration in that interview. The Prime Minister saying, I'm a believer in allowing people to come into this country if they have talents and they want to do things and make their lives in the UK and they can contribute to our economy, fantastic, and we've benefited from that.
So how does he square that with calling for amnesties for hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants? Boris Johnson has always been very soft on the immigration issue, but you know what? There's an election on, so tell people what they want to hear.
It's a problem for you, though, isn't it? Because if Boris Johnson is effectively promising what you want to see on immigration, he's promising to get Brexit done, why on earth should anyone vote for the Brexit Party?
Well, there you are. So that's why, even though it's very difficult to trust him and believe him, he said not just that, but he also said that we would go for a Canada-style trade deal, which, of course, would mean a proper break with the institutions of the European Union. Now, I have to say, he did rather backtrack on that in the debate on Friday by talking about the oven-ready deal, which I fear would give us...
But that's the exit deal, isn't it? He hasn't negotiated the trade deal.
Well, no. The exit deal binds us in. That's the point. Unless the exit deal is amended, we will be stuck in regulatory alignment for years to come. But either way...
There is an opportunity to diverge if you negotiate the trade deal with...
No, you can't do that. What we're doing here... And it's called the Brexit election, and you guys have branded it that from the start. We've had no discussion at all in this campaign about what the Brexit deal is. It is a new EU treaty. If it goes through unamended, we will find it virtually impossible to make trade deals with any other part of the world, and we will find ourselves in everything from financial services to fisheries bound by EU law. But there is still time for it to be amended. But what I did do... It
is Brexit, though, isn't it? Because you have been pouring scorn on this Brexit deal. It ends free movement of people. It does allow us...
No, it doesn't. There's a clause... No, it doesn't, you see.
Trade deals. It says we can stop contributing the amount that we pay now to the EU budget. We leave the customs union. It might not be the Brexit that you personally want to see, but it is a form of Brexit.
Well, if you've read it, you'll see that free movement of people has been rebranded with a new word called mobility. Look, if we make some amendments...
Well, Boris Johnson's talked today about a new Australia-style point-based system.
And every time he does this...
come down,
and every time
free movement will end.
And every time he does this, he betrays the fact. I'm not even sure he's read the details of this himself. Nonetheless, what you say is basically right, that we have been so successful in shifting the Conservative Party, dragging the Conservative Party, kicking and screaming, to a position where they say they'll deliver Brexit and they'll cut down on immigration numbers. Even though I don't believe it, I said, fine, we'll take him at his word and we will stand down in those Conservative-held seats. And one reason was, because his language had shifted, but the second reason, the even bigger reason was, I wanted to stop a second referendum. And I think the effect of a standing in the South and the South East would have been 24+ Liberal Democrat gains. We've stopped that. But where the fundamental misunderstanding of all of this lies, in the south of England, the Brexit Party vote comes overwhelmingly from Conservative voters. In South Wales, in the Midlands, in the north, our vote comes overwhelmingly from Labour voters, many of whom would never vote Conservative, even if you paid them. So the ludicrous narrative...
There's still a lot of Conservative voters who vote for the north of England.
There are some, but they're vastly outweighed by those that come from Labour, and in particular, those that come from Labour who will not vote...
By how much? What's the...
2 to 1, roughly, in most of those seats. And here's the point. The only vote that's being split on the Brexit side are the seats in which we are challenging Labour, and the Conservatives may well split our vote.
At the same time, though, your vote share has been dropping as the campaign's gone on. You're
I don't think it's moved at all.
Well, you're projected to not get any seats at all, according to the latest YouGov data practice. Well, the two polls out today put you on, I think, 2% and 3%.
Well, I tell you what.
What's gone wrong?
This is laughable. I mean, the way the polling industry actually operates is laughable. I promise you, when you sit there and see the results coming through in the general election, you will see that we are on roughly 13 to 14%.
How many seats do you think you're going to win?
Well, I think there's a handful in which we've got a seriously good chance of winning, and I think we will get some in.
So how many
I genuinely
do you reckon,
do. Well, I just said to you, I think there's a handful in which we really have got a great chance of winning, but our difficulty is, and we saw this in the Peterborough by-election, that our vote too can be split by the Conservatives, and we've got to get some tactical votes in those seats. That's the battle for the next 4 days.
It's been a difficult week with the resignation of four MEPs from your party effectively saying that people should vote Conservative. So we can just have a look at what one of those people said, Anansi Archer Rees-Mogg. She said this week, in Scotland, Wales and England, the Brexit Party are permitting votes to go away from the Conservatives, providing us with a Remain coalition that will do anything not to honour the Brexit referendum.
Well, look, she comes from a certain...
Brexit are really worried.
She comes from a certain class and has always lived in rural England.
Certain class, well, you went to a rather nice school.
And she says that in her experience, Brexit Party supporters are by 2 to 1 Conservatives. Yes, if you knock on doors in rural England, that's what you'll find. But what this shows is and I had this back in 2015. In 2015, all the commentators said, you'll split the Conservative vote. Actually, what we did in 2015 was to damage Labour when I was leader of UKIP. We gifted the Conservatives many, many seats. What this shows is a complete lack of understanding that there are now many seats in this country where the Conservatives are in striking distance of winning, where they would not be if there wasn't a Brexit Party candidate. I mean, Grimsby is a good example. Labour down 18 points, Brexit Party up 18 points since 2017. I mean, Conservative vote share unchanged.
I went to Grimsby a few weeks ago and I spoke to quite a few people who said that they really wanted to vote for the Brexit Party, but they weren't going to because they were really worried about a referendum happening, and so they're going to hold their noses and stick to the Conservatives. That's what I found in Grimsby.
But what you're seeing in Grimsby is still a large number of people are going to vote Brexit Party, and they are Labour voters who just cannot historically...
Well, I met a lot of people who voted Conservative last time, and then Brexit Party perhaps in the Euros, but were coming back to the...
I'm talking about Labour voters, not Conservative voters. I'm saying this to you. Seats like Grimsby, the Conservatives can now win because of the number of Labour votes that we're taking. So what Rees-Mogg says here just doesn't understand the numbers.
Well, let's have a look at what someone else says, shall we? Aaron Banks, one of your closest allies, the man you stood shoulder to shoulder with.
He's never, ever backed the Brexit Party. Since we founded the Brexit Party,
you stood shoulder to shoulder with him in that referendum campaign.
But he doesn't back the Brexit. Look, Aaron Banks is happy to accept a new EU treaty. I'm not. Simple as that.
Let's have a look at what he says.
Simple as that.
He says of you, he risks splitting the vote in some seats.
Again, doesn't understand the numbers. The Lib Dem seats would have been in South London, in Surrey, in Dominic Raab's seat, in Hampshire, and all the way down to the West Country. In the South, that argument works, because in the South, we take predominantly Conservative votes. We're not standing in the South. Only in a handful of seats in the South that are held by Labour and the Lib Dems. So again, this is people who do not understand, because the Brexit Party's appeal, just as UKIP's was in 2015, is in the Labour areas we take Labour votes. None of this. And you're going to see the results as they come through on Thursday night. I think, oh, crikey, this is all very surprising, isn't it?
I'm not going to get to the end of this quote, I can tell.
Well, but it's just irrelevant.
But what strikes me a little bit,
it's irrelevant.
I have to say, is that why is it that so many people who you are formally close to, you're formally allied with, Douglas Carswell, Aaron Banks, people who've left the Conservative Party to join the Brexit Party, you end up falling out with them?
I haven't fallen out with anybody. I haven't moved. I have stood and fought on principle for 25 years, and I'm doing the same in this election. Of course I want Brexit done, but I want the right Brexit done. And I promise you this, I was the first to say that Mrs May was betraying Brexit. Everybody laughed, but I proved to be right. And I'll predict this. We will be back in crisis by June unless this withdrawal agreement is amended. And that is the fight I've got. And I want just to get a bridgehead of Brexit Party MPs in Parliament to hold Boris Johnson to account, because otherwise we're going to see Brexit sold out.
Are you not worried, though, that all of these people, Aaron Banks, for example, Nunziata Rees-Mogg and others, who genuinely believe in leaving the EU, want to leave the EU and have campaigned to leave the EU, and they're now saying, Nigel Farage, I think you're wrong.
Well, it's Brexhaustion. They've changed their principles, I haven't changed mine.
Do you never think it might be you?
I haven't moved, I haven't shifted. I want us to have a clean break from the institutions of the European Union. And Nunziata Rees-Mogg stood on a ticket that said, we will leave with no deal if that's what we have to do. Also stood on a mantra of changing politics for good, not supporting it as it currently is.
Very quickly, if we end up leaving the EU on January the 31st, what happens to the Brexit Party?
It'll have to reform into the Reform Party. It'll have to campaign to change politics for good, get rid of the House of Lords, change the voting system. So much to do. And again, you'll see on Thursday a turnout much lower than the pundits expect, because people have lost faith in politics.
The Reform Party, new name?
Absolutely, I've registered it already.
OK, thank you very much, Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, the leader of the Brexit Party.